Thank you and good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am Mandy Lee Garofalo. I use she, her pronouns, and I'd like to welcome you to Bucksmont Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's multi-platform worship. We're moved by love. We share lifelong journeys of growth, wonder, and healing, nurturing wholeness in society and spirit, creating a community of justice and compassion. I'd like to give a welcome to everyone joining us online and in person today, members, friends, and those who may be newcomers to our community this morning. If you're new to Bucksmont and visiting us in person today, please stop by our visitor center in the front hallway near where you came in. There you can also make a name tag for yourself and find more information about Unitarian Universalism, Bucksmont Fellowship, and upcoming events. If you'd like a hymnal or a printed order of service, those are available near the entrance to the sanctuary. If you are visiting us online or prefer digital methods, please email our office administrator, Beverly, to sign up for our email newsletter and to get connected to our congregation. Each week in our service, we offer time for people to share a joy or sorrow from their lives by texting a phone number. That number will be shared in the chat box for those online and on screen for everyone now and later in the service. If you would like to see the order of service, details about upcoming services, and other ways to gather with our community, you can find that on the homepage of our website, www.bucksmontuu.org. There's a lot happening at Bucksmont, and we'd like to highlight these announcements in particular. For RE this week, from 10:30 to 11:45, childcare is available for families with little ones 5 and under. They are invited to drop off or stay and play in the nursery as needed. All children are welcome to use the play spaces in the sanctuary and social hall. Cool Breeze Summer Retreat, August 12th, 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Yoga and meditation, healing sound bath, spiritual art, and enriching conversation. Not to be missed. See the e-voice for details and link for tickets. Our next summer community night at Bucksmont will be the tabletop night on August 13th, starting at 6:30 p.m. So bring a favorite game or play ones that are already here. We do have quite a selection that come those days, so lots of game playing happening. On August 27th, we will have our final movie night. Come for popcorn and stay for the community. More details in your weekly e-voice or the homepage of the Bucksmont website. Whether you are a guest, a friend, or a member, we're glad we're part of your worship service today.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Jerry Johnson. I'm an ordained American Baptist minister, and I'll be your speaker today. And I'd like to give a special welcome for all of our friends from Thomas Paine UU Fellowship. It's glad to have you with us, those that are here in person and those that are online today. Today is a good day for us to remember the August 6th bombing of Hiroshima, Japan. The movie Oppenheimer, which is based on the book American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, was released July 21st. Today is a good day for me to share some insights that I gained from reading the book. The book covers more than the events around the creation of the atomic bomb. We will get together after the service to share our fears, reactions to the atomic bomb, the book, the movie, and the renewed threat of nuclear weapons brought on by the Ukrainian war. We will meet after the service, and we won't have refreshments today because of what's going on with the kitchen, so if you want to stay and have that discussion, we'll give you about 5 minutes or something, so we'll get back together after the service. Thank you.
I'll actually be doing the call to worship today. As we gather in our sanctuary, in our homes, or watch from mobile screens almost anywhere, we are all together. Those watching now on Sunday and those who may be watching months from now. We are joined together for worship across both space and time. This is a free, creedless religious congregation. In the discipline of truth and the spirit of universal kinship, we join together in a cooperative quest for religious and ethical values, seeking to apply these values to the development of character, enrichment of the spirit, and service to all. You are welcomed here. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever the color of your skin or your country of origin, no matter your gender expression or gender identity, whatever your age, however you define family, wherever you are at this time, and whatever the source of your faith, you are welcome here.
This morning, as we do each time we gather, we kindle our Unitarian Universalist chalice. We do so today with words from our Unitarian Universalist sixth principle. We affirm our goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Although this world is full of genocide, abuse, terror, and war, may this flame light our path to a better world for all. Please light your chalice at home. Our common chalice is now lit.
Hi, my name is Lynn Nugent. I use she, her pronouns. I'm going to be your hymn leader today. If everyone wants to rise in body or spirit, join us in our opening hymn, which is 168, One More Step.
Come on up, everyone. Children and adults of all ages. We have the Wonder Box today. I wonder who would like to open the Wonder Box. Did you say a crane?
A paper crane.
A paper crane. I was going to say, do you know what kind of bird that is? That's a bird that's very famous in Japan.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a crane.
Very nice job. Now, this story is being told by a cat. Now, you may not think that cats can talk, but they can think, and they have thoughts. Let me tell you about the story of my friend Sadako Sasaki. It all began on a sunny morning in August 1945. We were playing on the bank of the river. We ate rice balls and lay in the grass. See the cat and the rice balls? We heard chirping crickets nearby. We tried to catch them, but Sadako's tiny hands were too slow. You see, the cat can catch them, huh? But then came the huge black cloud. It brought fire and heat and destroyed everything around us. Nothing was left except gray ashes. 10 years later, that cloud was almost forgotten when Sadako became ill. Oh no. She had to go to the hospital. The cloud was to blame. Sadako knew it, but also she was not afraid. Her brother told her an old legend. If you fold 1,000 paper cranes, he said, you'll get to make a wish. Sadako wanted nothing more than to get well. So every day she folded cranes. And though each one she folded made her happy, the effort took a great deal of her strength. Her family was very worried. There's the cat again. I lay with her and tried to hide the fear I felt for Sadako. When she had finished 500 cranes, Sadako hung them all over her bed. See them hanging up? There's a picture of how you fold them. We'll get to that later. While she kept folding more cranes, I told her stories. This is the cat. Stories about the things I knew she loved. Sadako, your mother will make us some delicious green tea. And I learned green tea isn't actually green. You think cats drink tea? I don't know. Sadako, your mother will make us some delicious green tea. We'll go skipping through the rain, jumping in every puddle we see. We'll travel to the ancient arch in the water. Then we'll come home on the back of a giant dragon. Can you imagine that? But Sadako never came home. she gently fell asleep and flew away with the paper cranes, with 1,000 paper cranes. At the end of my journey, I understood that our time together would forever have a place in my heart. Now I carry Sadoko's story out into the world. And I know that Sadako will live on in each folded crane. So I have cranes for everybody, I think. Sure. And for parents who like a challenge, there's origami paper out on the table and instructions. But as I found out, the instructions contain 18 steps.
That's 19 steps too many.
As you go on your way, may you be filled with gladness. Go enjoy. May fortune bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love. As you go on your way, may you be filled with gladness. Go enjoy. May fortune bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love.
The offering in liberal religion is a vital part of our history of faith. As a covenanted community, people who freely choose to be here, our voluntary giving is symbolic of that freedom of choice. Each week at Bucksmont, we share our offering with a different cause or organization in the community. For the month of August, we are sharing with Advocate for Inclusive Education. Advocates for Inclusive Education believe successful public schools are places where students have the freedom to learn, the freedom to read, the freedom to learn, and the freedom to engage in honest conversation about the world around them. Public schools are where our kids learn to respect each other, tolerate, and even embrace differences, and create democracy out of individuals. We ask that you participate in our morning offering in one of these ways. You can write out a check to Bucksmont and mail it into the fellowship. You may donate online now or at the end of our worship service, or you may place your donation into one of the baskets as they are passed. We will now receive the morning offering. Our community continues to grow and thrive due to the generous donations of both time and money. For the many ways that you contribute and how it sustains this fellowship, we are truly grateful. This morning's reading recounts the events of August 6, 1945. In the early morning hours of August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay took off from the island of Tinian and headed north by northwest toward Japan. The bomber's primary target was the city of Hiroshima, located on the deltas of southwestern Honshu Island facing the inland sea. Hiroshima had civilian population of almost 300,000 and was an important military center, containing about 43,000 soldiers. The bomber, piloted by the commander of the 509th Composite Group, Colonel Paul Tibbets, flew at a low altitude on automatic pilot before climbing to 31,000 feet as it neared the target area. At approximately 8:15 a.m. Hiroshima time, the Enola Gay released Little Boy, its 9,700-pound uranium bomb over the city. Tibbets immediately dove away to avoid the anticipated shockwave. 43 seconds later, a huge explosion lit the morning sky as Little Boy detonated 1,900 feet above the city, directly over a parade field where the soldiers of the Japanese Second Army were doing calisthenics. Though already 11.5 miles away, the Enola Gay was rocked by the blast. At first, Tibbets thought he was taking flak. After a second shockwave, reflected from the ground, hit the plane, the crew looked back at Hiroshima. The city was hidden by that awful cloud, boiling up, mushrooming, terrible and incredibly tall, Tibbets recalled. The yield of the explosion was later estimated to be at 15 kilotons, the equivalent of 15,000 tons of TNT. No one, sorry. No one will ever know for certain how many died as a result of the attack on Hiroshima. Some 70,000 people probably died as a result of the initial blast, heat, and radiation effects. That included about 20 American airmen being held prisoners in the city. By the end of 1945, because of the lingering effects of radioactive fallout and other after effects, the Hiroshima death toll was probably over 100,000. The 5-year death toll may have reached over or exceeded 200,000 as cancer and other long-term effects took. Sorry.
That description is tough to get through, isn't it? Let us now enter into a time of awareness within ourselves and connection beyond boundaries, connections to one another, to that interdependent web of life of which we are but one small part. As we breathe in, we are connected. As we breathe out, we are connected. I'm going to read a prayer by William Sinkford for the anniversary of Hiroshima Day. Like most traumatic scars, the ones that are found in Hiroshima and Nagasaki are permanent, reminders of the terrible things human beings can inflict. Similar scars can be found in the hearts and souls of people around the world who understand this terror, scars of grief, sadness, fear, and even shame. None of these scars promise an end to war and devastation. They serve as a reminder of the healing and renewal of a return to life. Gracious God, Spirit of life and love, help us to see our scars, those we have created and those we are called to witness, and those we can soothe and heal. We are deeply grateful for the buds and blossoms that even the most scarred offer as revelations to the world. And especially on this anniversary of Hiroshima Day, we renew our commitment to peace, individually, collectively, and globally. To a peace within, which calms our anxieties and fears. A peace between which outcomes differ animosity and conflict. to a great peace beyond even our understanding. That is your gift, which we attempt to steward to the world. As we breathe in, we are connected. As we breathe out, we are connected. May our minds create a vision of the world radical enough to be called holy. May our actions contain the promise of hope and the commitment to justice. May our hearts remember that love is a power that resists all forms of fear. By our thoughts, by our actions, by our hearts, and by our breath, may it be so. On August 5th, 1945, my father was on the island of Okinawa, and was a part of the planned invasion of Japan. My understanding of the bombing of Hiroshima was colored by his belief that it most likely saved his life, and by extension, it saved mine since I was born in 1950. The only other memory that I have about the Manhattan Project was that my high school math teacher, Miss Banta, used to tell us stories after our calculus class, and after we'd finished what she wanted to do for the day, she talked to us. She had a group of 12 or 13 boys. Sorry, girls. Somehow they didn't get into the math class. And she told us a story that said she was one of the few people that said no to someone who was asking her to join the Manhattan Project. We all assumed that it was one of her professors. And we kind of knew that she kind of talked about it with pride. We thought the pride might have been that she was able to say no, but I think the pride was more of being asked. And as I read more about Oppenheimer, I realized he did all the recruiting. She must have said no to Oppenheimer. Think about that. I knew somebody that could have been on the Manhattan Project, but she didn't want to go. But still, 25 years later, she talked about that with pride. Think about what it must have been like to be in college, or graduate student, or postdoctoral student, to be asked to join the famous, in those circles, J. Robert Oppenheimer. Those people that went to the lab must have been really excited about this adventure they were on. The Manhattan Project was more than just a lab at Los Alamos. There were at least 20 sites involved. The government spent over $2 billion, mostly on buildings. The 3 sites that were the most important were the Clinton Engineering Works in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the Hanford Engineering Works in Richland, Washington, and Project Y at Los Alamos, New Mexico. Hanford and Oak Ridge were the first because they supplied the raw materials for the bomb. Major General Leslie Grove of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was in charge of the Manhattan Project. He needed somebody to be the director of Project Y. Robert Oppenheimer was an unlikely pick. One of his friends said he couldn't even organize a hot dog stand. Of course, I don't know if I could either, though. That's really tough stuff, right? Feeding people. But Oppenheimer was a theoretical physicist. And why is that important? Because I recognize that physicists are separated in two kinds of physicists. One was an experimental physicist. They did the experiments. The other was a theoretical physicist. They just sometimes thought about it. But more importantly, there was 2 types of theoretical physicists. One was a mathematical physicist. They started with the math, and then they would use language to explain it. Oppenheimer, on the other case, was a verbal physicist. He started with the ideas and then would go into the math to explain it to people. So my understanding is when he met with Grove, he was able to explain what was going to happen and how they were making this bomb. And Grove, who was an engineer, got it. And he said, yep, he knows what we want to do, and he can do it. And those kinds of lectures that he gave actually led everybody to what were they doing. The work commenced in December 1942 with a group of young men and women. They were the cream of the crop. Think of what the mindset in 1942 was. War had been declared on Japan and Germany. Young men all over the nation were volunteering, enlisting in the army. Patriotism was at its peak. These young people were working on a secret project. How much more important could that be? From the beginning, there was no question about the need to create the bomb. Before Germany, Oppenheimer had studied in Germany and knew that the German physicists were able to create an atomic bomb. As a matter of fact, the German physicists were the first ones to split the atom, which was necessary in order to create the bomb. So everybody was tied up into this project. Think about it. Have you ever had a secret? Have you been able to share it with, 1,500 people, all working on the same thing, but you couldn't share it with anybody else? Being isolated in the desert where they were must have had an enormous effect. One of the children that went to school said that each day in school, they had explosions all the time. But they had explosions at 9, 12, and 3, which defined their school day. At 9 o'clock, the bombs went off and they went to school. 12 o'clock, the bombs went off and they went to lunch. 3 o'clock, the bombs went off and they went home. Can you imagine how they were exploding? What were they exploding? What were they experimenting with? It wasn't an atom bomb. Well, it turns out that they had to do something to start the reaction. And so they were spending a lot of this time with the engineers and the chemists who were trying to explode things and get it right. And that kept going. But all of a sudden, in May of 1945, Germany surrendered. All of a sudden, the reason for doing this went away. They were no longer in a race with Germany to find the atomic bomb first and win the war. And as a result of that, a lot of the scientists said, why are we doing this? Why are we going to drop this bomb on Japan? Isn't there a better way? In June, a petition was signed by 153 of the scientists that there should be a public statement about exactly what the conditions for surrender were and what would happen if they did not surrender. That petition never made it to the president's desk. On July 16, 1945, the first atomic bomb was exploded at the Trinity test site. It was a plutonium bomb. This was the bomb that they were worried might not work. Now, if you know anything about the bomb, it was a ball of plutonium, about 9 pounds. That in itself was creating a sphere of this metal exactly round. That in itself was an engineering feat. But they discovered that the only way they could explode it is if they contracted it by having it surrounded by explosive charges. And they were worried that it wouldn't work. All of those explosions had to happen at exactly the same instant. They all had to be directed inward. They all had to compress that ball of plutonium and explode. It actually worked. It must have been an awesome sight. They saw the light, and it took 10 seconds for the sound to reach them. That's how far they had to be away. Some men danced, shook hands. One of Oppenheimer's assistants turned to him and muttered, "Now we're all son of a bitches." Oppenheimer's final report about what went on at Project Y reads as follows: "It is our firm opinion that no military countermeasure will be found which is adequately effective in preventing the delivery of atomic weapons. In the future, these devices, already vastly destructive, would become even bigger and more lethal." Only 3 days after America's victory, Oppenheimer was telling the President of the nation, "No defense against these new weapons. We are not able to outline a program that would ensure to this nation for the next decade homogeneity in the field of atomic weapons. We are equally unable to ensure that it could be achieved. We believe that the safety of this nation, as opposed to its ability to inflict damage on every power, cannot lie, or even primarily, in its scientific or technical prowess. It can only be on making future wars impossible." We don't hear much about that. We don't hear much about the fact that Oppenheimer understood that this new weapon that he had created was such that he felt it was going to end all wars. It would make wars impossible. Didn't go very well with the government. They continued. They started developing what's called the hydrogen bomb, a thermonuclear bomb, which was infinitely more powerful. Oppenheimer said there's no possible use for that. It's almost like a murder-suicide pact. In June of 1946, Oppenheimer had taken his case to the public by publishing a long essay in the New York Times Magazine that explained the plan for an international atomic development authority. In layman's terms, it proposes that in the field of atomic energy, there be set up a world government. World government. Does that sound like something that we hear every once in a while and is derided? A new world order. That concept came from after the First World War. It never came to be. Think about that. He was saying that what we need to do is we need to control all of the parts that would create an atomic weapon. Needed to control the uranium mines. Needed to control the reactors. And he said what we should do then is set up this commission that would take that over and give people the ability, give countries the ability to have atomic energy, but not weapons. So by this time, they had made the bomb. So there you have it. What are we to make of it? We didn't make it. We didn't get the order to drop it. We didn't fly the Enola Gay on August 6th, 1945. Oppenheimer quotes Hindu scripture, "Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." This quote sometimes is attributed to him, the Trinity test. But the more I watch these specials that we've had on Oppenheimer, if you listen to him carefully, he says, "I thought of this passage of scripture." He didn't speak it at the time. And I think that's important. And he sees the scene. Think about the scene that he was quoting. It's a scene between Krishna and Prince Arjuna. And Arjuna's trying to decide whether or not he should go to war against his brothers, his cousins. Just like Oppenheimer, going to war against Germany, where his grandfather might have still been alive and his cousins were still there. What was he supposed to do? And Krishna tells him, I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. In other words, Arjuna was not to worry about the fact of what he was going to do. He was supposed to do his duty. He was of the warrior class, and your job is to go to war. Be done with it. Don't think about it anymore. That's what happened with all of these people that were part of the Manhattan Project. They were caught up in the idea that we have to go to war. We have to defend ourselves. We have to defeat Germany. That was their duty. That was their task. In a meeting with President Truman, he said, I feel like I have blood on my hands. And Truman thought, what a crybaby. Think about the blood that I have on my hands. It's what I had to do. Quit being such a crybaby. You know, today as we look back at this bombing, we could feel that we have blood on our hands. Do you pay your taxes that support our military empire? So like Arjuna, we must do our duty. But the question for us is, what duty do we choose? In the 14 years I was pastor of the Greenwood Baptist Church, I never had a Hiroshima commemoration service. The first service that I remember was in 2008 when I first started here at Bucksmont. We had a service right out in the garden, I guess. Then it was just grass. And it was one of the reasons that I wanted to come here, because I recognized that this community was interested in peace, was interested in looking at what we had done on that day and saying, you know, we can't do that again. But let's face it, we all could stand up this morning and say, yes, we never want to see an atomic bomb exploded again. Yes, we want to get rid of all of the atomic bombs. And you know what? Nothing would happen. We are not enough to do that. So what's our duty? You ever thought about that? What is your duty? Hiroshima Day is a time when we can think about, well, what is my duty? Is my duty to say no to the project? Say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Is it my duty to tell the president, hey, we don't think you should do this? What is our duty? And in thinking about that, I recognize the fact that we have one and only one duty, and that's to do what we can to promote love and acceptance within this community and within this town. We can stand up for that. Being a part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, we're always talking about that. Love is at the center of what we believe. It's like that round ball of plutonium. The problem is, how do we ignite it? And if we all got together and continued doing the best we can individually, maybe we can ignite it. Maybe we can make a difference. But we can only make a difference one person at a time, one thing at a time. We can't feel guilty about the fact that, oh, hey, we didn't stop war. But we have a Peace and Justice Committee that's still working for peace. We can do that every day. You still support the Peace Center, and the Peace Center recognizes this. It's not that it's against war. It's to create peace within our communities. today, my challenge to you is to remember Hiroshima. Remember all the ugliness, all of the destruction, and say, we can do better. And we can only do better as a society when each of us individually does better. So today, I guess what I would tell you is that don't feel guilty. Be like those first scientists. We have a secret project to go to. Love will change the world. Of course, we get to tell everybody that, and we get to act it out. Amen, and blessed be.
Let's echo Jerry's words. Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, with each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
As part of our caring outreach to one another, we set aside a few moments to note both sorrows and joys in our lives. In these moments of peace and reflection, we turn our attention to one another. We hold each and all in our compassionate thoughts and the prayers of our hearts. This morning, we are dropping stones into water. The bowl includes some of the water we gathered as a community back in September, so it contains the love of our congregation surrounding each joy or sorrow. As we add the stones to the bowl of water, our experiences are given weight and depth. We add a piece of our own stories to the collective waters of this community, a place that also holds the memories of those who have gone before and anticipates those who have yet to arrive. To share the joy or sorrow you would like held by our caring community, please text the number that is on our sanctuary screens. Please include your name along with your sharing. It is the same number no matter how you join us today, and you can add it to your contacts for future weeks. I will read them aloud, and a stone will be dropped on your behalf. When you share what is shared today will go out in our weekly caring notes to those who cannot be with us this morning. Please remember to include your name with what you share. And now we will add a final stone for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken and deep within our hearts. With stones gathered and remembrances shared, we honor our joys and our sorrows, those shared this morning and the many more that exist beyond words. Through our time together, our relationships are deepened and our community made whole.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our final hymn, which is a joyous song, I've Got Peace Like a River. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul, in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul, in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul, in my soul.
We extinguish our common chalice with words from our seventh principle. As we extinguish our chalice, may we take its light into our hearts as a reminder to respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. As we leave this place, may you find great peace, which is beyond even our understanding. That is the gift which we attempt to share with the world. Amen, and blessed be. Go in peace.